There is one commonality between every first-person shooter, no matter how realistic, cartoonish, team-based, or individually driven it is. You kill people. Crazy concept, I know. However, one of the least explored yet important parts of an FPS game design is how long it takes to kill someone, and the consequences of making the time to kill either a blink of an eye or a slower process. Generally, the preferred time to kill if you ask a random person is a fast one, where only a few bullets are needed to get a kill. However, most of the time, I find high time to kill much more compelling gameplay wise. It needs to be implemented more outside of battle royales. But first, let's go over some reasons why most people enjoy fast TTK shooters. The first main reason that low TTK shooters are so prominent is a simple fact: it's how guns work in real life. Realism is still a great selling point for a good amount of people, just look on Twitter. So naturally developers would make in-game guns behave like real-life guns. This also applies to other mechanics like aiming down sights and sprint. All three of these were popularized by Call of Duty 4. That's another major factor in the preferences of low TTK. It was the industry standard for a long time. People like the familiar, and Call of Duty has been a major influence for games throughout the late 2000s, early 2010s, and its influence still leaks to this day. As well, how much people talk bad about it, guess what? People are gonna buy it. Another main selling point of low TTK games is that a battle can last quickly, and you can move on to the next opponent. It's a nice flow of one kill after another that doesn't have to wait for a long engagement. It's intuitive, and it's satisfying. What's also satisfying is the nature of quick kills. You just get the job done so fast, it feels good to do that. Finally, a part of low TTK that people will find satisfying is you can't back down from a fight so easily. Running isn't an option when the enemy can kill you before you can go into cover, making battles much simpler. However, a lot of this is a matter of perspective and preference, which is often the case when something is better or worse. And now that I've covered the other side, I'd like to make my case to why I like high TTK games better. First, let's talk about movement in fights. In FPS games, there's two main ways you can win a fight. You either aim better, or you draw off the enemy to aim better. The latter can be done in multiple ways, but the most prominent way to do it is with movement. This is why the best players in FPS games often use their movement to make it hard to hit them, yet this is most prominent in games with higher times to kill. In a game with a low time to kill, it often favors reflexes more than consistent aiming, meaning how quickly you can acquire a target and shoot is more important than hitting more shots over a longer period. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Basically, it doesn't matter how fancy your movement is if the enemy just bursts you down in a blink of an eye. This is prominent in Titanfall 2, as you can often see absolute degenerates refusing to engage the move system and still getting a lot of kills. Until the Titans come crashing down, then they're completely out of luck. This is unlike in games with higher times to kill, as straining to effectively dodge shots becomes a lot more significant, and the game becomes focused on effectively spacing yourself and your enemy to maximize your damage while minimizing your damage taken. It's a lot like footsies and fighting games, where both players are carefully moving around to successfully get hit, while not getting whiff punished themselves. Again, this does exist to an extent in some low TTK games, but much less prominent. It also gives players that are reloading more of a fighting chance, as you can dodge while you refill your clip instead of just getting caught with your pants down and dying afterwards. Finally, make sure effective range isn't as monopolized as it usually is, as you can tank some hits so you can get to an advantage later by moving away or forwards. There are other parts that feed into this like map design and movement, but overall, high TTK games make movement matter more, for the most part. Also, remember earlier when I talked about how these different TTKs emphasize reflexes or consistent aim? Well, I shall elaborate further on that and why I generally prefer to focus on consistency rather than twitch reflexes. One of the first benefits of a high time to kill is that the games become significantly less sweaty. I talked about this topic in a previous video about how skill gaps reduce sweat, but when you're forced to have to be always on alert because anyone could just kill you in the blink of an eye, it makes the game sweatier. In higher time to kill games, however, you can take a hit and still win the fight if you're good enough, meaning you don't have to worry as much. Or you just run away. I don't know. Granted, difficulty to hit these shots and the gap between average and optimal time to kill is also a factor. However, the time to kill is also a great factor too. Kills are also a lot more satisfying because you have to earn them, and you can't just spray and pray and just get a lucky kill. You have to purposely land your shots. There are not many scenarios where you feel cheated out of a fight, as your opponent also had to be deliberate. There's also a lot more situations where you could come back from a disadvantage, as saying one good shot doesn't guarantee that you'll hit the rest. One more main thing I like about consistent aim being of more importance that automatic weapons and shotguns now take more skill. Shotguns are usually stigmatized as a skillless weapon, but having to consistently land dead center shots adds a layer of skill to them in high TTK games. Automatic weapons are less seen as unskilled, however they're just as easy to use due to how most of the time they're really sprayed around well with care and get kills. That's right, your SMG meta is just as bad as shotgun meta, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. In higher time to kill games, however, you need to track the opponent and put a lot more effort into aiming overall. This factor of consistent aim being required and movement mattering a lot more compounds into one major advantage of high time to kill shooters. Fights are a lot more dynamic. With the increased time to take someone down, there's a lot more time to make decisions and influence the battle to get the upper hand. There's a lot more that goes into a gunfight than just aim, like movement and positioning. And when combined with map design, fights evolve from a simple staff to a full-on John Wick fight scene, with cover being heavily used to break sightlights and to later get a surprise peek. This is still a good low time to kill games, but again, it's not as present. With higher health, fall damage also becomes less of an issue, meaning verticality can be used to quickly escape a bad situation. That's another part of high time to kill game that's compelling, that a fight can often turn into a game of cat and mouse, where the injured player desperately tries to escape while being chased down. Sure, it can be frustrating to have an opponent barely get away, but it's also an incredibly exhilarating feeling to successfully manage to escape the enemy like a Genshin Impact player running from the feds. And once you recover, you can re-engage to try to make sure the enemy regrets letting you live. But who knows, the enemy might be prepared and might put you in a bad situation than you were in before. But high time to kill doesn't just affect the overall gameplay, but everything else around it, providing new gameplay opportunities. And one of these new opportunities to bloom is unique weaponry. I touched on this previously in my last video, but the prevalence of low time to kill hinders the potential for new weapons in FPS games. Due to the near instant kill time, you can't significantly alter the DPS for one outfit, making it either feel broken or underpowered. Projectile weapons also become obsolete if it isn't a rocket launcher or an incredibly fast and powerful projectile, as why wait for a projectile to hit when you just gun them down? Instead, other stats like effective range, recoil, and fire rate are more prioritized, and that's the main way you can make weapons feel different. In high time to kill games, the DPS problem no longer exists. That's no longer the monopolizing factor. The rocket launcher at TF2 doesn't really have that good DPS compared to the other primaries, but still are the best weapons in the game due to the splash hits and sheer utility of the weapon. The flamethrower has very low DPS, but makes up for it by the fact you don't need to aim that well, and it has air blast, which is Pyro's most powerful tool. In a low time to kill game, when it needs to be charged for a few seconds would be entirely useless, but in Halo 3, the Spartan laser controls the entire map. You can also make weapons that are specifically made to combo with your other weapons, now that weapon swapping in the middle of combat is viable. Good weapon examples of these being the flare gun and the plasma pistol. I could go on with these examples of cool FPS weapons, but I already did that. Kind of. Main point is, not only is the general gameplay that high TTK provides generally is more compelling, but it also allows for more avenues for gameplay mechanics we haven't seen before. So, does that mean that we just slap that stuff on every new FPS game? Well, not really. There's one subgenre where these two things don't mix. Mil sims are a genre by nature that are incompatible with high time to kill. These games pride themselves on authenticity over flashiness, so naturally they add in a bunch of realistic mechanics. This includes stuff like aiming down sights, sprinting, real weapons, and of course, the guns must kill fast. This goes if you're trying to make more arcade experience like Call of Duty, or if you're going full realism with something like Arma. If you prioritize authenticity, not realism mind you, authenticity, there's a difference. Guns killing slowly goes entirely counter to your game design. But outside this niche scenario, I hope I explained well enough why usually a higher time to kill is a more enjoyable experience, and leads to avenues for unique experiences. Thanks for watching, tell what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.